Up, Cycle Team Squad members. It's your boy. It's Brick in my basement, so luckily I got the cashmere. That cashmere. Probably should make some cashmere pants. That is besides the point though. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make pants out of dress shirts. Now I'm not going to be going through every single step of how to make the actual pants because I've done that practically 3 times already. My first one was the dance pants tutorial. Second one was the George shorts, which are pretty much sewn the same as pants. And then most recently, the Transformer dance pants tutorial. That being said, I'm going to show you how I break down a dress shirt into a pants panel. Here's a quick little example. So I leave the shirts functional so you can open up the legs and basically be nude. All jokes aside, I feel like I've figured out the best way to break down a dress shirt so you can make them into pants. So it's actually quite simple. We're breaking the dress shirt open into 3 parts. So one part will be the front side, basically with the buttons. And then I just trimmed right below the yoke. So then we have a separate back panel, and then I cut off both of the sleeves. I typically use 4 dress shirts for a pair of pants. So you can have 1 individual dress shirt on each panel of the pants. So the first thing I do is I just cut off both of the sleeves right at the seam on both of the sides, and we can put these aside. Once you cut both of your sleeves off, you're going to open up the shirt. Now all I'm going to do is cut along the side seam on both of the sides. Once your side seams are open, I'm going to flip it up, and now I'm going to be cutting just about a 1/2 inch below the yoke, and that will separate the back piece from the front panel, but we're leaving the yoke connected to the front. So this is quite a small yoke, as you can see. And if your shirt doesn't have a yoke, then I would just cut about 3 inches below the collar. Yokes vary in sizes. As you can see, that one's a bit larger. All we're really doing with that, cutting that yoke piece, is so we can have the shirt still look like its original while it's on the pants. So I'm cutting just about a 1/2 inch below that yoke. If you don't have a yoke, just do like 3 inches below the collar, separating the back panel from the front panel. So I would do this to all of your shirts you're going to use, and then I kind of organize them piles with the front panel, piles of the back panel, and then piles of the sleeve. Once you have all of your shirts separated and in their little piles, I usually put the sleeves aside because I don't use them towards the end. All we're going to be using at first is the back panels and the sides with the buttons, the front. First thing I'm going to do is actually button up all of my shirts all the way to the top. Once you button up your shirt, I like to lay it out with the back panel portion and decide you can use the same fabric. I like to do different. So the collar and buttons will take up the majority of the leg, but we do need to extend it to get it looking like this. So I always just kind of lay it out, see what I think would look good together. And once you have decided which of the back pieces you want to pair with the front piece, we can fire up the sewing machine. All right, so this step is fairly simple. All we're going to do is to attach the 2 pieces. I'm going to flip the yoke over and then just line it up to another flat side of that back piece. It doesn't really matter if it's the top or the bottom. I'm going to clip this down, and if there is a pleat, which there is a pleat on my shirt, just lay it flat and pin accordingly. That's how my first one looks. I'm gonna do it again for y'all. So, just grabbing that yoke and lining it up, starting here where we were, lining it up to flat side of the back panel, and it would probably be wise to take your ruler and make sure this is straight. So make sure to pin or clip all of your pieces, then we can take it over the sewing machine. All we are going to do is sew this seam that we just clipped at a 1/2 inch. All right, so this is how we are looking, just stitching that front panel from the bottom of the yoke to that back panel. And you don't even need to finish this seam because it's going to be concealed within the next step. This next step is very simple. So this is the seam that we just sewed, and all I'm going to do is flip this back piece up. Then we're going to take kind of the shoulder seam of the front part with the collar, and we're going to flip that up. So you can kind of now see the piece taking its shape. All right, so one more time. This is the seam we just sewed. Now I'm taking this back panel, flipping it up. Now I'm grabbing my shirt, the front part from the shoulder seam, and bringing that up. So one other thing is you want to make sure that this fold right here has enough space. Otherwise you'll have like a little hole. Like let's say it was like this. You'll have a little opening. You don't want that. So just make sure when you flip it up, you leave a nice little fold of about 3, even more. So yeah, you just want that fold of the top panel to be at least 3 inches or so, just enough to where you can't see through, because the shirt will open to your legs, but when it's buttoned, you want it to, be covering yourself. So now all I'm going to do is bring it to my ironing board, give it a nice little press so everything's laying flat, and then I'm just going to do a straight stitch along the entire top, starting from the side, so down the side, even over the collar, and then back, tacking that side down. And once you do stitch this down, that is one of the last steps, and you'll see this is plenty of space to then put your front or back panel on and position the collar wherever you want to and cut out your pant leg. All right, I'm gonna even do it one more time because I'm just a dog like that on the ironing board. So that was the seam we just sewed. We're pulling this panel upwards, still looking at the seam. Now we're grabbing the shoulder seam and folding that up, and then making sure that we have plenty of fold here so when it's buttoned up, it doesn't show through. Then all I'm doing, once I get that nice fold, is giving it a little press with the iron to make sure everything lays flat. And then we'll just stitch along the perimeter of the top of the shirt. So I gave it a nice little press so everything's laying flat for when I stitch around. And just to give you exactly what I did on this shirt, my fold is about exactly 4 inches. So 4 inches of space, just so we don't have any show through. One other thing you could do is give this little seam a top stitch. I'm not going to, because when we stitch around this edge, it will be completely concealing this seam inside of the garment, not even under. All right, so I put a few pins in place and I can see where I'm going to be stitching. And it can take a little bit of finesse stitching around the top of the collar, but just go slow. Sewing isn't really something that should be rushed. I'm just going to be stitching along this edge, but feel free to stitch it down however you think feels the best. You could do a zigzag, you could do a double top stitch. I typically just do the edge stitch because you can't really see it that well. Now it might get a little bit funky transitioning from the collar to the shoulder, but at the end of the day, we're making pants out of dress shirts, so it's not gonna be absolutely perfect. I just make it as best as possible. So right here, I have this tiny little fold over. I'm just gonna lay it as flat as possible and continue on appreciating the beauty and imperfection. Now, once you have stitched that top edge down, you can grab your pattern piece. I'm going to be using my Transformer Pants pattern available on my website. Use whatever pattern you would like. The Transformer Pants is a super versatile, straight leg, yet very wide pair of pants. Can be sewn in so many sizes. But yeah, I would just recommend something baggy so you can use more of the shirt. So all I'm going to do is basically line up the crotch curve just above the top of the collar. And then I want the buttons to be going just about in the center of the leg. This also goes for the back pattern piece as well. So lining up that crotch curve just above the collar and then having the buttons go down the middle. And that is just so the majority of the pant leg looks like it is a dress shirt because it is, and then also it can open for the majority of the leg. So you'll notice there'll be quite a bit of bulk kind of where that collar is, so the pattern won't lay perfectly flat. But quick sewing tip, when you're making pants, the part that matters the most is the crotch curve and up, because that is where the sizing is most noticeable. So in these bulky parts, if you trim it a little bit away from the pattern, I wouldn't worry about it. Just try and be precise at the top section. All right, so this is how my front panel is looking. And the final step I would do before constructing the pants is you most likely cut this part off. So just go back to the machine and just stitch this down lightly on the edge on both sides. Boom. So I stitched those sides in, and then those will be in the side seam. So obviously do all the steps we went over to both your front panels and the back panels, and you will have a swag nasty pair of dress shirt pants. Also, the cutoffs from your pattern pieces, so this extra fabric should be plenty to make your back pockets and your waistband, etc. You might have to patchwork them together a little bit, but that just adds more swag. Now, like I said, I have 3 different tutorials on my YouTube channel on how to sew pants pretty much. So I would say the most in-depth one is my most recent one, the how to sew the transformer pants. And after these steps that we just went over, it really is just like sewing a normal pair of pants. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, comment any questions you might have down below, and start your upcycling journey today.